Make sure you watch until the end to see how you can win free gear and products. Hey, this is PJ with CLK Supplies, and I am back with my dad, Pete Slauson.
Yep.
Thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And guys, so if you haven't watched any of the previous videos, this is our third together.
Yes.
Right? And go ahead and you can watch those previous ones. We'll put links to the notes below. And we've talked about the different things, right? So, Dad, you've been a locksmith for 40 years.
Right.
Have, by pretty much most standards, all standards really, you have a successful, large locksmithing business.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And, and we've kind of talked about the different challenges with it
right.
here and there. But I kind of wanted to shift it a little bit because I think sometimes it's so easy for people just to watch this, watch these videos and be like, man, you know what, Pete was able to build this business and he's done this and that and he's built the same business for 40 years. And it's easy to forget about some of the struggles.
Right. There's always struggles.
Some of the struggles. Because let's face it, all of us, you, me, everybody, in business, in life, we all encounter things that, we wish we didn't really have to.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that the truth?
And so I want to take this opportunity, Dad, and thanks for being willing to kind of talk about this.
No problem.
You built a successful locksmithing business, but you've had a pretty big challenge along the way. And I kind of want to, if you can kind of talk about that and...
okay.
Yeah.
Well, growing up, I always had a hard time in school. Reading and writing wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. 5th grade, a teacher goes, I think you're dyslexic. And I go, whatever that is,
mm-hmm.
where your brain just doesn't seize the words and, puts it in different areas.
Yeah.
And, I, struggled all through school. I went to special schools, my parents, after regular school to help improve it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was tough,
Yeah.
I'm not a school guy.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely no expert on this area, but I think today, when someone has dyslexia, or is dyslexic, I should say, how they are able to train them and help them through that is a lot different than when were you in school? In the
60s,
70s, right? And stuff. But so this has been something that you've dealt with essentially your whole life.
Right.
But you were always good with your hands.
Right.
Right? And so when you entered into your own business, right, part of that is paperwork, it's invoicing, it's taxes, it's accounting, writing down jobs,
right.
all of that stuff. And
right.
I just want to talk about for a few minutes on kind of your perspective on that and how you used growing up with having it be hard in school, how you kind of use that as motivation, right?
Right, because, people think because you can't read and write that you're not very intelligent. They go, what a dumb guy. He'll never amount to anything. So mm-hmm. I had to prove to my dad and to myself that I could do it. Mm-hmm. So it was tough.
Yeah.
Like my invoices, I had them pre-printed with, service call, rekey, keys, installation, whatever. So I didn't have to spell it. It was already there, and I could just write the dollar amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is smart. Before we were doing this, we were kind of talking about it a little bit. And
right.
I, didn't know that growing up as a kid, always filling out those invoices, that's why it was there.
Right.
But that's smart.
Yeah, most locksmiths don't have anything. I have the basic stuff on there.
Yeah.
So I could,
mm-hmm.
carry on.
Yeah, no, and kind of the point I really want to get across to everybody is that you didn't use that as an excuse, right, to not go try. Even though I'm sure at times, did you feel a little nervous about it,
Oh, absolutely. I was as nervous as could be. It's just reality. If you don't try, you haven't failed. And if you tried and you failed, that's okay. Get back up again and do it.
Mm-hmm.
constantly redo it. I'd spend hours at the kitchen table working on locks when I went through a locksmith school.
Sure.
And I'm not a school guy, like I say. And I called them and said, is there any reading and writing? They said, oh, yeah. Well, how much hands-on? Oh, there's a lot of that. And I said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents sent me to the school. And it was tough. I mean, but recognizing all the keys, just doing stuff over and over.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, Dad. And so, guys, I guess, the main point I'm trying to make here is that all of us have different obstacles that we need to overcome, right? And locksmithing, we've talked to a lot of people, who are great mechanically, they're very mechanically inclined. And a lot of times the paperwork and that kind of stuff can kind of scare them. And I really want to just encourage them to be like, listen, you can do this. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
You can.
If I can do it, anybody can do it, believe me.
Yeah, and if we can just talk for a minute about when you decided to get into locksmithing and then start your own business. Like, there had to be a part of you growing up being told, some mean things.
Yeah,
right?
You can't do anything.
You can't do anything. There'd be a part of you that kind of used that as fuel to the fire.
Absolutely.
Right? You're like, listen, this is the deal. Maybe I can't read or write the way that you expect me to, but I can still show up and do it.
Yeah, show up, do the job, and if I need it, give me instructions, forget it. Give me a picture, I can make it work.
Yeah.
And it's been that way even still. And, I've surrounded myself with people that can read and write or tech savvy for, the computers. Mm-hmm. And if we have to write a letter, I tell them what I want and they write it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you've just developed a bunch of workarounds.
Right.
Right? And I'm sure Mom growing up, before you had a lot of staff members.
Right. She helped.
Yeah, she would help you.
All the time.
And you made it happen.
Yep.
And so you have any advice to anybody who maybe feels that they don't have what it takes, right? And maybe there's stuff that they wish, it'd be easier, if I could do this or that better. You have any advice for them?
Well, as I've always said, everybody wishes it was easy, but having a business isn't easy. Mm-hmm. You have to really want it and make it work. I spent a lot of hours trying to build the business, trying to get through, stuff for the business. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reading and writing. When you have to sign these contracts for bigger jobs, you go, okay, what's this? So I'd have my wife or a friend read it to me and tell me what it was.
Yeah.
And, when we went to a lawyer to get incorporated and stuff, I said, I don't read that well, so tell me what it says.
Yeah.
And they're more than happy to.
Yep. So you just have to kind of push yourself a little bit. So if you could sum up kind of some advice to give to someone who maybe doesn't think they have what it takes.
Well, you have that inkling in you what says, I know I can do it. I just have to step forward and do it. Mm-hmm. It's tough, but you can, go slow. Ask somebody to help you if you have a hard time reading it or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so great about associations.
Or at least a group of, some sort of group.
Or other locksmiths who don't mind sharing it. A lot of locksmiths says, well, my competition, I'm not showing you anything. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know it all, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And because it's changing every day. Mm-hmm. So there's,
sure.
With the transponders, that's changing constantly, programming.
Sure.
It takes time to learn.
It does. It does. Well, awesome, Dad. Well, thank you for coming on and kind of talking about that a little bit.
Problem.
I know it's more of a sensitive area for you, but I think it can be so helpful, guys. And I hope you really got something out of this. Moral of the story here is, guys, we all face different obstacles and different things that maybe we don't have been told we're not good at, but flip that around and use it like my dad did as motivation. And here
Absolutely.
you are, 40 years later.
Yep. Still in business.
20 employees.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Well, hey, thank you for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts and comments below. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Since you just watched this video, I'm guessing that you work with locks and keys. And to us at CLK Supplies, that makes you a lock boss. And we want to hook you up. Here's how it works. Throughout the week, join the conversation and comment on our posts and videos and include the hashtag LockBoss. It's free to enter this giveaway. And every Tuesday, we're going to pick 5 winners from the previous week and hook you up with all sorts of prizes, including gear, tools, supplies. We might even send you a key machine or buy you lunch. So if you're a lock boss, join us every week to learn, grow, and win.